How big is Avery?
We're starting.
Okay. Yeah, we're going live. All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming this evening while we finally get to our finishing of WhatifAltHist's is, or America is the New Rome. There's no question about it in his mind. They absolutely are. How are you guys this evening?
Because of the video?
Oh, okay, good.
I'm doing, I'm kind of tired, but I'm pretty good, all things considered.
Definitely understand you, Touch Grass.
Really dodged.
It's hard to work a 8-hour day and then know at some point in the evening you were going to be watching a WhatifAltHist video.
Yeah. Well, today I gladly didn't have to work, but I did have to drive for like 5 hours, so that was tough. But
That's,
we're all through it.
that's still really, really rough. So,
All right.
Okay, wait, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, I was just going to say already, what the hell is this?
I can't. Oh, I can read it. Okay, it's poor education. Can we get like
Handy chart about how slavery slowed down economic growth in the modern world. The same principles applied as well to classical Greece, Rome, as they did to 19th century Brazil and Alabama.
Why is Alabama listed on the same?
Yo, Brazil and Alabama, bro? Two genders of history.
We're gonna go to 19th century Alabama.
Where does this start?
I don't know. So if you have no interest in raising individual productivity, well, you'll have poor education and no money left for mechanizing.
You know what I really hate about WhatifAltHist is that he can't even advance his own worldview well.
Oh, urban.
Because he doesn't really have a worldview. He just has like a bunch of points that have the illusion of relating to one another.
Now, Daedalus and I were talking before the stream, and I think I've figured out his worldview is sort of a far right one, and one that believes in conspiracy theories that a small cabal of people are trying to control the world.
It's the Jews. He thinks the Jews control the world.
See, I was trying to avoid using that word.
We're 15 seconds in. We can get away with it.
Being monetized, but just in case.
I think it's actually the British, personally. I think the British did it.
Yeah, but
why this chart goes back in on itself? Also, this arrow doesn't go anywhere at all.
No, it doesn't.
I think it's supposed to go to lack of social mobility.
He missed.
Saying that poor education takes you nowhere because, I mean, it's the truth.
He missed. He missed the thing. All he had to do.
Free white labor
can't compete. If it's free white.
What is free white labor?
Free white labor can't compete. I don't know.
I guess he means freed men. Free men, but you don't make the distinction of a free man if that person had not been previously enslaved.
The only free white labor I can think of, that comes to mind, and it's not all white, is sort of gulag sex, concentration. People.
Slave society goes in two directions. Why would you organize? Never mind. Let's keep going. I hate this chart.
bullet by not facing the horrifying social consequences of slavery, which have largely been diffused by Christian morality.
Okay, this is really interesting because in the video that Sunday's looking at is one on why the alt-right is going to take over. He tries to make an argument that slavery is a net benefit for society. He can't even be consistent 3 weeks down the line. Like 3 weeks, what if all this from a month ago has such a radical shift in worldview that he's the exact same place while making the exact opposite argument.
This leaves American social...
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying that's how it works, you know? That's called logic. You just can't take it.
I've been destroyed by facts and logic. I've been destroyed by something, that's for sure.
Stability in a better position than it was for the Romans. Likewise, due to the universalizing Christian values, America is much...
An important distinction to be made is that Christianity is founded upon the idea that all souls are equal, and that Christ came to earth to... So this first one is probably not really... Christ came to earth to save all men, and the goal is to form a brotherhood of man under Christ. This is fundamentally a universalist view of the world. That is not a universalist view of the world.
This is already BS.
However, the traditionally Roman religion said that the gods of the city of Rome were fundamental to that society, and then he spelled guys wrong. And then that guy's unique. It was difficult for classical societies to integrate people from outside their city-states, since their religion was also based upon heredity. Wait, what? What is that? Heredity?
You spelled it wrong.
Where the only way to be part of the city's culture was to be born into it. But that's not at all how the Roman Empire worked.
No, that's what I was just going to say. It's not at all how it worked. I'm not an expert on ancient Rome, but as far as I understand it, Rome tolerated many, many different types of religions. And there were many representatives of those religions are being practiced in Rome itself, in the city and throughout the empire.
So here's... You can become a Roman citizen from almost anywhere. You don't even necessarily have to buy fully into Latin culture, or the Latin culture at the time. The way Rome really works as far as integration goes is they don't particularly care. They'll appoint a governor for the area, and they'll have Roman infrastructure, and the local leadership has to kowtow to that infrastructure. But it doesn't keep people from integrating. Like, people from all over the Roman Empire consider themselves Roman for thousands of years. And he spelled, let's see, anything else spelled wrong? The only way to be part of this city's culture was to be born into it. The Romans broke with this custom and worldview, but it was still the baseline norm. That sentence doesn't work as grammatically because now I don't know what he's talking about. Wow.
Better cooperation than the Romans, whose religion was tied to individual locations. Thus, America has seen much better relations between its states than the Italian allied tribes, much less tension and all that sort of thing. America has also treated it...
All that sort of thing.
Dude, just all that sort of thing. Like,
we had a civil war. We had a pre-Civil War before the Civil War.
The traditionally Roman religion, the traditional.
Oh yeah, however, the traditionally Roman religion. What? This man gets hundreds of thousands of views. You think he could afford a dictionary? Or a subscription to Grammarly?
Yeah, a subscription to Grammarly would be all he needs.
its subject peoples much better than the Romans, probably the best of any major empire ever. Just compare Carthage to Germany or Japan, where the Romans committed genocide against a peaceful country for revenge, while the US let Germany and Japan prosper under their local government.
They occupied Carthage. Also, they had fought 3 wars over the course of a couple hundred years against Carthage. So Carthage was hardly peaceful.
Dude, I don't know, like,
The Romans.
Sorry, go ahead.
so what was the? I'm kind of forgetting on the original points here. So he's just saying generally that it's the same, right? That
He's
like
trying to point to the superficial similarities between Rome and Carthage.
What he's trying to argue is that both of these civilizations declined because they fell into decadent ways. He's repeating tropes with
It's
a lot of the far right.
it's Spengler. It's Spengler all over again. The life cycle of civilizations.
Yeah.
The long debunked Spengler.
okay, yeah, I just wanted to
distorted and muddled
Yeah.
in their subject nations' politics, while the US never really does it with its dependent countries. Finally, science has changed the dynamic. The US does not make vast amounts of money in conquering foreign territories. Conquering foreign territories was popular for Roman politicians, and they purposely did it to get votes.
We don't
Meanwhile,
make money out of that.
Well, first
Okay,
of all,
well,
yeah, that's a thing.
I mean, some people make a lot of money of it. A lot of people.
Second of all, Roman politicians do not conquer territories because they want votes. Their elections do not hinge upon the vast majority of the Roman people voting for them. Their elections hinge upon their popularity. A method of gaining popularity is military success, but you can just as readily win that military success by leading a successful campaign of defense. So, here we have this is a good delineation right here, 44 BC. That's around the time of Julius Caesar's conquest of Gaul, right? At that period of time, you have gone well past the point where Marius Gaius has reformed the Roman legion. So you have a legion now that is a professional army. You have a legionnaire who has a term of service of 16 and then 20 years. And at the end of those 20 years, they get awarded a plot of land. The problem is that the plots of land in Italy are all taken up by an increasingly large farming systems called the Funda that are owned by rich, wealthy Romans, usually Senate or allies of senators. They weren't going to break up those plots of land. In fact, attempts to break up those plots of land were made, and they resulted in the 2 individuals trying it, the Gracchus brothers, getting assassinated. So in order for a Roman general who has to pay for and raise these legions himself to have land to give to the legionnaires as part of their retirement, they have to have available land. So you create a system where an army is loyal to the general who wins them the land, which fuels expansion. It has nothing to do with getting votes. It has everything to do with paying your bills. Like his direct success and his ability to build a reputation as a commander is based on the fact that he can give someone a farmland at the end of 20 years. Okay, I'm done. Anyone else got anything?
No.
US unprompted foreign invasions are incredibly unpopular with the public. Instead, the US's massive economic gains are largely built through technological progress rather than looting foreign countries. America
We have maintained an overseas empire for over 100 years. Where we take things from them and sell them things, and dependence, and oh God. What does he think Puerto Rico is? A vacation house?
Guam, American Samoa.
The Philippines for a significant portion of its history?
I think he's brought up before. Actually, I think Daedalus, did you send me something? I think like a week ago, him sending something on Twitter about the comments about like him not reading anything.
I think I've sent a lot of WhatifAltHist tweets as a joke lately. Hang on, let me go back to it.
Because I wonder what is it. I wonder if he's like if he reads anything at all.
It doesn't even seem like he reads Wikipedia.
It doesn't seem like he reads the book he references. Gang, I can't stand Cali anymore. I'm moving to Texas. Bertrand Russell. They went dark for like 3 weeks or 2 weeks, and I was like, maybe something happened. The problem with geographical determinism is there are areas, he spelled there wrong, with horrible geography that were wealthy for very long times. Mountainous and desert Iran being example. I don't even know what it means to say that Iran has horrible geography.
I have issues with Jared Diamond too. I think most historians have their disagreements, but he's not even. He actually ignores a major point Diamond made with domestic animals, particularly coming from that area of the Fertile Crescent. In that climate zone.
Yeah. Let's see where this goes.
Automates rather than importing millions of slaves. This continues the pattern of the U.S. being less bloodthirsty, but also having more problems in its social contract than the
Rome's problems in its social contract were due to slavery. America's are due to the destabilizing effect of technological Does he not think that there wasn't technological progress in Rome?
Nah, dude, they were just like just walking around with clubs and shit.
And also, this is blatantly not true because America has significant social issues that are downstream of the fact that we had a slave society for the first half of our country's existence. And then after that, we worked very hard to maintain the very same social order that slave society had fostered. This guy wouldn't understand race relations if a colored's only water fountain hit him over the head.
Romans did. In their early centuries, the Americans and Romans filled in their core sea to shining sea territories, or Italy and the North American continent, largely fighting non-state tribal peoples and building alliances of co-ethnics in doing so. Thus,
of course the Romans were fighting non-state tribes. There were no states as we know them at this time. Sorry, I'm in a mood today.
Someone ought to send WhatifAltHist Benedict Anderson.
I
don't know when Imagined Communities was written. I don't know the year. Maybe it's in that sort of that he says he won't read any book past the 70s. It's obvious that he doesn't read any books whatsoever, but what's his cutoff again?
It's said to be the 60s or the 70s.
I don't know when Benedict Anderson published Imagined. Let's see.
You have a computer, you can check. We got
That's what
time.
I'm doing. Oh, 1983. It's kind of passed as
Apparently.
yeah.
Thus, with both the two Punic and World Wars, they rose from local dominance to becoming the most powerful nation in the world, mostly unwittingly as a reluctant superpower. A minor atrocity caused
I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, this is pretty stupid.
The two world wars in this analogy are a combination of the Punic and Peloponnesian.
Peloponnese. Oh, is that spelled incorrectly?
Yeah,
Yes, that's spelled incorrectly, and it's referencing the wrong fucking country or the wrong
Yeah,
fucking state.
that.
The Peloponnesian Wars, which was fought between Athens and Sparta, hundreds of years before the Punic Wars, and before Rome had even figured out, how to bang rocks together.
What's the distance on that?
Let's check just to be sure.
Because I feel like that's like a couple hundred years, like 200 years maybe.
200. Yeah, it seems will be accurate. It's the Peloponnesian Wars are after the. I think it was
431 to 404 BCE. The traditional founding of Rome is 753 BCE, which is the legendary founding of Rome. And April 21st, so coming up. Archaeology. Let's see what archaeology says. 14,000 years ago. Yeah, long story short, the Peloponnesian War has nothing to do with Rome. Like, Rome isn't even a twinkle in anyone's eye at this point, as far as a power on the Italian peninsula goes. Just out of big curiosity. 509 BCE. Yeah, they're not even past being a city-state at this point.
caused in a mess of small states in the center of the geopolitical map, in Sicily and the Balkans, caused the First War, which escalated.
There's that phrase again, center of the map.
Through a series of alliances, resulting in the Americans and Romans winning the war, but largely through winging it. However, the harsh terms of the treaty left the losing faction, the Carthaginians and Germans, bitter, then resulting in a militaristic, de facto dictator starting a war over a new territory to create.
Help. I think I smell burnt toast.
Causes of this. We need this territory for living space to make up for the last war. That's not very cash money of you. War. Dude, this guy's a fucking genius.
The Second Punic War was not fought extensively in Iberia. It was fought in Italy. Poland apparently is all of the gray area.
Yeah, that's
Like the Polish territories expanded dramatically in this retelling.
and the invasions of the German intervention and the Italian invasion of Greece was mainly to protect their southern flank.
Which apparently is already part of Poland.
Yeah, yeah.
Along with half of Spain. And Andorra.
Oh, Norway, Finland.
I told you there would be crimes against cartography occurring. And here we are.
Ireland, Iceland.
Just Ireland, not Northern Ireland. Very important distinction. The Good Friday Accords apparently stopped that.
create living space elsewhere for their nation, being Spain or Poland, spiraling into the bloodiest war in history up to that point, being the Second Punic Wars or World War II. After mobilizing their insane population and economic power, the Americans and Romans were able to defeat the better generalship of the Romans and Carthaginians, and
He couldn't even get his story right. He just tried to argue that the Romans and the Carthaginians, the Romans fought in World War II, apparently, relative against the Americans. Why are there...
Wait, so who's what? Is like Carthage supposed to be like Nazi Germany and Italy?
Why are we seeing the
atomic bombs which were dropped on
Hiroshima,
Japan?
Nagasaki bombs, on Japan? How is this?
Japan is Carthage. That's why.
Advancing his point. Let's see further.
in them eviscerating the enemy cities, as seen in Carthage as well as Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Hiroshima and Nagasaki are Japanese cities.
The thing I will add is that the Second Punic War was much bigger in proportion than World War II, killing a majority of Rome's upper classes, being fought in Roman soil.
I don't...
Like you mentioned before, the
economic power, the Americans
Hang on
and
a
Romans
second.
were able to Something I will add is that the Second Punic War was much...
Okay. Here's the problem with including this map. This completely belies your point that they were invading Iberia. I don't know who made this map, because it's not called Spain. You're fine. Don't drop... Just stop that. Hannibal is trying to attack Rome. Hasdrubal is trying to help. They're not invading Spain. If they were invading Spain for elbow room, then they wouldn't go into Italy.
Bigger in proportion than World War II, killing a majority of Rome's upper classes, being fought in Roman soil, and resulting in effective genocide of the Carthaginians as a race. However, World War II was close to 100 times...
Carthaginians aren't a race.
Dude, the race of Carthaginians, bro. That's the next Elder Scrolls race.
It's like he's just playing Civilization and pretending that he knows what's happening.
Times the actual size, and so I'd say they're roughly parallel. A big similarity between the Punic and World Wars was that for both America and Rome, it was a two-front war in which America made giant gains to both its east and west against different civilizations.
The Second Punic War was not a two-front war. The vast majority of it was fought in Italy. You might generously... You're being very generous to even call the conception of ancient warfare a front.
Dude, look, America's in the middle of the map.
Oh, God help me.
Or with Carthage and Greece. At the same time, it caused the...
Why does these maps keep saying Spain? But everything else is correct.
I don't feel like this is his map either.
No, this isn't his map, but it's
just, it's the map's messed up. It should say Iberia, but
the implosion and loss of real independence for the Greeks or Europeans. The American entrance into Europe is incredibly similar to the Romans' entrance into Greece. The Romans viewed the Demonians and Seleucids, who are almost a stand-in
Seleucid
for America protecting Western Europe against the Germans and Soviets. The Americans didn't want to colonize Europe and the Romans Greece, but put military influence in there to protect.
They took it over. They just came in and took over Greece.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say, too.
Oh, my God. It's not even correct for bad facts. It's nightmarish. This is nightmarishly bad history.
Them from tyranny, creating the Achaean League as an alliance against the Macedonians, kind of like NATO and the European Union against the Soviets. There were 3 Macedonian wars in which the Romans took progressively more control over Greece, kind of like the First and Second World Wars alongside the Cold War.
Okay, the Second Punic War cannot be the same as World War II and the Macedonian campaigns. Something has to not be compared to World War II.
Dude, it's all World War II, bro. It's just the same shit.
We often have this stereotype of the Romans being stone-cold conquerors, but in reality they had many political debates and opinions that we would consider to be completely reasonable. Almost all the conquests the Romans made were defensive to the safety of Italy or one of their allies. It's similar to America, which
I want to try to process that sentence for a moment.
Yeah, I do too. That's
I have to defensively conquer you in order to keep you from... It's Russia. He's literally arguing, making Russia's argument about Ukraine.
But hold on. Come on, guys. I think we have to give some credit. I think we can see some obvious parallels to America and Rome, right?
Sure, some very
You know,
superficial ones,
For
though.
example, America's in the middle of the map, right?
And so is Rome.
So is Rome. To the north of us, we basically just have a bunch of barbarians that try to act like us. And to the south of us is just a desert where nobody really wants to live. And like they have Neuro, we have Biden, so it's all the same.
It's Ukraine. It's Russia's argument about Ukraine. It's
if someone's gonna hold a to advance some sort of like it's hard for me to figure out his worldview right now. I think I got an idea of what it is, what he's trying to state, but he does so poorly that everything's just so incoherent.
obviously everything is like World War II.
Yeah, this is painful.
almost
I mean, this is literally painful to watch.
Rose to power unwittingly. In Rome, you had lots of conservatives who argued against wars and the bloodthirsty.
I don't know how to tell you, but these are Americans, not Romans.
Actions that they did. And there were even human rights concerned, where the Romans would complain of the corruption or violence their generals have done in the provinces. Both Rome and America had such inner strength that they just filled the room until they sucked up all the oxygen in their empires unwittingly. However, as I've said in my video on the future of Europe, as both the Greeks and Europeans lost cultural unity and energy, the Americans and Romans have gained more and more power until both the Greeks and Europeans have become de facto colonies dependent upon the U.S.'s military, political...
Christ.
Okay.
You actually, sorry, quick question. Do you want to skip to the 34-minute mark? I forgot last time I saw like the thing. So the 34-minute mark, it says this is about the fall of the Republic. So I think this is more interesting because obviously Rome fell, but America has not, considering that we
except for
are.
the vote. The divorce rate skyrocketed.
I don't know, painting.
These are
painting that's way.
This is a Byzantine fresco, isn't it?
Centuries later.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, this is Byzantine.
This is a Byzantine. Well, not Byzantine's a wrong term. It's Eastern Roman, but Byzantine is not the right term, but Eastern Roman.
So stupid. He is so stupid. He wouldn't be able to pass he wouldn't be able to pass one of our history classes in high school with Mr. Miller. He wouldn't have been able to do that.
Which is bad because Mr. Miller had some sleepy Joes in those classes.
Of course.
As well, and divorces became a normal thing. You even saw an equivalent to transgenderism, with some young slave boys cutting off their genitals and dressing as women for their master's pleasure. In both cases, inequality rose
Hey,
to
yo, wait, what?
Whoa.
I don't know.
This really,
Uh-uh.
I don't know much about that.
More to the point, that's not an equivalent of transgenderism.
I don't. I would like a source for that. I'm actually quite interested. What is he referring to? Is he just referring to like normal eunuchs? Like
Yes,
eunuchs
he's
wearing.
referring to eunuchs.
but he put a picture
Wait.
of. Go back to that statue with its nose ripped out. There is, I don't know if this is just actually damage, but there were some sculptures. I forget. I think it was in either the Renaissance or forget what period, but it was common for certain people to have who were disliked to have the statue's nose chiseled out. I don't know. Anyway, this is something different, but I can't make heads or tails. He doesn't all the images that he uses are out of place.
Yeah, we have a very similar. I have a very similar style for the video essays where I use images against the thing because I'm not that talented, right, of making videos. But I make sure that the images matter, like they make sense or say
Of
something
course.
clever. Like for example,
Yeah.
in our channel explanation video, I make a point about the difference between the glorification of history and what actually happens. And to do that, the image I picked for that was Napoleon crossing the Alps in one frame, and the next frame is Napoleon crossing the Alps on a donkey, which is what actually happened. Like there's a theme there that you can see if you're clever.
On the cutting off the genitals thing, I'm now remembering. I think I know what he's relating this to. It's the cult of Cybele. I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce all this. I don't know if you guys have heard about that. Basically, Cybele was a fertility goddess associated with the Phrygians. You know, the people in it was like a group in Anatolia, modern day
Yeah.
Turkey.
Mhm.
And they had this, I guess, this like priestly figure who kind of reached a sort of sainthood known as Attis. And in the legend, Attis like cut off his own genitals for Cybele, I believe, or something like that. But I'm pretty now. I don't know all of this information. I've heard this like from something or like read it on like Wikipedia or whatever. I don't know all the information
Did
of
he
it. But this is like a
himself or cut off?
he castrated himself. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but also the problem with this is that I'm pretty sure that cult and the whole worshiping of Attis is pretty old. That's like I think even before the Roman Empire. Sorry, before the Roman Republic. So I don't know much about that.
Be something to look at later before we see where this disaster goes.
As women for their master's pleasure. In both cases, inequality rose to dazzling heights as the benefits of empire were spread disproportionately. Large corporations gained larger and larger portions of the economy, and the wages of normal Romans were undercut by slave labor brought in from the empire. Sort of like how we offshore businesses to Malaysia, China, or Mexico today, which in both societies crushed the previous middle classes, which then moved into cities and became a largely disassociated proletariat with no stake in society, who voted for populists and relied upon the welfare
Wait, I
state which
missed that.
ballooned. Immigrants.
Go back. Okay. No, not
Proportionally.
that far.
Large corporations gained larger and larger portions of the economy, and the wages of normal Romans were undercut by slave labor brought in from the empire. Sort of like how we offshore businesses to Malaysia, China, or Mexico today, which in both societies crushed the previous middle classes, which then moved into cities and became a largely disassociated proletariat with no stake in society.
So Slavery does not undercut the wages in Roman society. Roman society is inherently unequal because you have inequality baked into the system. You have political inequality baked into the system. You have different powers granted to a person and different offices only available to people of certain stations. And very little actual mobility exists.
Real quick on the whole, I sent the thing in the studio
Yeah,
chat.
I saw it. I'll pull it open when we finish this nightmare. Just because I think we're going to be running short on time today. Or we're going to be short on time because we didn't leave that much to go. Like, Rome had inequality, always had huge problems with inequality. It didn't just suddenly emerge. Also, when you're talking about the fall of an empire, you have to remember that there are two halves of Rome, and that the second half, the Eastern Roman Empire, still counts as Roman. And it persisted with much of the same social situation as Western Rome. They just didn't get a horde of barbarians flowing over the hills.
Who voted for populists and relied upon the welfare state, which ballooned. Immigrants, largely slaves, flooded into Italy.
Slaves aren't immigrants. By the time the Western Roman Empire was falling, very little actual voting of significance was done.
In 100 BC, eating a third of the population, roughly equal to that of the foreign-born and their children in America today. From these metrics, we should roughly be in 120 BC today, as the Republic is decaying. I think a roughly good place to position ourselves
What the fuck is this?
What the heck is this?
Corn farmers. I love it. The corn farmers.
Philippines. In Siberia,
Aboriginals, Malays,
China,
Tibetans.
Tibet. Wow.
Why is there a white edge of civilization? Son, there's civilization everywhere. You marked out the civilization.
Dude, you got the corn farmers, bro. I'm so happy.
I like how he's got a white outline, like it's a chalk outline of something that's been murdered.
Wait, the
But what do Siberians do? I mean,
Khoisan and the Bantu. Wait, hold on. I'm pretty sure the Bantu shit.
what happened to this madness?
Dude, wait, hold on. Why did he just put like I don't know.
Classic
What do they farm down there? Why don't you just put farmers in Africa? Like, why Bantu specifically? I'm pretty sure the Bantu migration occurred like relatively recently, like the past like 500 years.
Yeah, this is
That I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. I can't answer that, but yeah, this is.
set.
Even then, it's not the Bantu's not like the majority.
I'm curious as to.
Herder people. I like that. Herder people.
Yeah.
If life was just so simple, you just had fucking corn farmers, herder people, the Scythians,
The edge of civilization.
the Indic civilization.
You can just
We have-
fall off civilization into the Black Sea.
I love how Madagascar is uninhabited. There's just nobody there.
Yeah,
Actually, I don't know
Madagascar
Madagascar.
would be inhabited at this point. From people sailing all the fucking way
Yeah,
from Indonesia to Madagascar. There ain't a whole lot in the middle of the Indian Ocean. I've talked a couple times about wayfarers and the impressiveness of the entire culture just going all over the Pacific. But it's even more impressive that they managed to get to Madagascar through the Indian Ocean. The Indian Ocean ain't got shit in it.
no, I don't.
Okay, let's continue.
Jesus.
Around the Gracchi brothers being Trump. The Gracchis were extremely wealthy populace bent on redistributing land.
The Gracchi brothers are about as far from Trump as humanly possible.
Dude, the Gracchi brothers are Trump, bro. Make Rome
and
great again.
improving the station of the old Roman middle class that had been severely weakened by globalization and cheap foreign labor, and they were hated by entrenched elites. The Gracchus were assassinated, which didn't happen to Trump, but he definitely was invalidated by the establishment. A continuous theme here is the American events are less bloody than the Roman, and so this parallel makes sense. At this point, I'm just going to say what happened after this point in Roman history, and see what a similar comparison would be in America.
Or Lincoln's assassination, or any of the
Kennedy assassination attempts and other.
He got his head blown to pieces.
Wait, so who's going to be Caesar? Is it going to be Nick Fuentes or?
I don't know, but he's about to he's about to probably miss a whole lot of Roman history. Let's see what happens. Are we going to go from the Gracchus brothers to straight to Caesar?
America. And I'm just going to run with a scenario of Rome being the future of America. From this point in Roman politics for the next 80 years, you saw political assassinations common, and the two political parties, the optimates and populares, not accepting the other's right to power. As the political system of compromise...
This is not a conception of, this is a modern trans-historicized conception of political parties. Right. If you're going to say that Octavian is a populare and he's very conservative, then your conception of political parties doesn't work.
Wait, Kanye West is Caesar.
Yee!
broke down, military dictators and strongmen like Sulla and Marius seized power, purging Roman politics of their opponents.
Marius who? That's like me saying, give the envelope to Mark. Mark who? Unless you know what Mark we're talking about.
Eventually, a conservative dictator stabilized Rome 100 years after where we are now in the comparison. Rome stopped being a democracy at all, really, with Augustus maintaining the outward forms of a democracy.
You just made the point about people voting for senators. But now it's not a democracy?
Wait, so are we supposed to be turning into an empire soon?
With an emperor, apparently.
So who's the emperor?
We're about to find out.
Democracy. But then for his descendants, as even the memory of Rome being a democracy vanished, they became fully dictatorial and made fun of all of the...
He didn't read that book.
Oh, wait, that's written by the Spider-Man guy.
It is not. It's written by Tom Holland, whose Twitter handle is Tom Holland and not the actor.
Is it really?
It is.
That's so funny.
Former vestiges and ceremonial parts of the democracy that still were around. This would be the equivalent of each party not recognizing...
Yes.
How is it?
The book is okay, but he didn't read it because he's pulling shit out of his ass.
Why is Illinois light blue?
I don't know. I don't understand what this map is about, again, because there are states here that are... He must have just pulled a political map from the middle of an election. Hey, Charlie, how are you?
Dude, this is the election.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Charlie. He's trans-historicizing a concept of political party that doesn't exist.
And the other, and America falling to different dictatorships, with the populares, whose closest parallel is the Democrat Party.
No! God damn it. I have a feeling I know why he left college, because someone threw a book at him.
I don't know about that. College is not that great with that.
Yeah, maybe the professor's aim was bad and they hit someone else.
spawning warlords who fight over the dying American Republic as they offer the public all kinds of welfare goodies for supporting them. The Romans then had a series of horrifying slave rebellions that they bloodily put down. America doesn't really have a close equivalent, maybe Mexican migrant labor, but their kids naturalize and become Americans. And if we over-mechanize the
Slave children could naturalize in Rome and become Romans.
Wait, I get it. Like ice, that's like the Spartacus revolt.
That's as close as anything, really.
Oh, the prison riot. Prison riots are slave riots or slave revolts.
I think he's going to get to the Black Lives Matter riots. That's where
economy, so no one can work. Maybe a Luddite rebellion against the machines and AI doing all the work. Rome's allied Italian republics rebelled as well, killing hundreds of thousands, which really doesn't have...
This is dramatically overestimating the population in Greater Italia.
Dude, it was like two
good
people.
Equivalent at all, since America's states have equal political power, while Rome bossed its Italian subjects.
What the fuck is this?
I know, why is he going?
Now, first of all, this is a map that has to be from a early in the Republic.
He's even got the name for the Romans wrong.
Yeah, that's not.
Latin. Yeah.
Yeah, it should be Romanian.
Samites. What on? Oh my god, I can't even. Holy shit. This is actually worse than the first part. It gets worse the longer you go on.
States around. There was also an invasion of German barbarians into Italy, which also really has no good parallel, since the Brazilians aren't going to be attacking Texas anytime soon.
That's what you think. Also, a Germanic invasion into Roman territory is basically a Tuesday.
It'll be a coalition between Brazil and Alabama.
Grand Columbia shall rise again.
Maybe Mexico industrializes and becomes a threat in the next 50 years. If we want to continue the theme of the problems of classical civilization stemming from slavery and the West from having...
Is he about to try to talk about robots? He's going to talk about robots. If the Cylons have a plan, they're going to wipe us out.
Technological progress too fast. Instead of all these issues of social unfairness, America might instead see crises due to collapsed social traditions, such as birth rates not being able to stay constant and society having serious problems from that, or gender issues.
Okay. Birth rates only need to stay constant in a society that requires labor to fuel capital. So if you move away from a society that is consuming lives in the name of capital, you don't have to maintain a constant increasing birth rate. If you expect constant growth, you need constant birth rate.
Yeah, but the gender issue, though.
Gender is related to that, though, because I think the real objection that most people have to trans people is that they're afraid it makes them gay.
Daedalus, look at this picture of these pink-haired they/thems and tell me that society is not collapsing. Look at them.
Her eyeliner's collapsing, but society seems to be okay.
Those type of people annoy me, but nothing can annoy me as much as WhatifAltHist. I think he is number one on my shit list because I had to watch this.
It gets worse. I haven't finished the video, but I know it gets worse. It can't possibly get better.
Young men rebelling against social justice and all that sort. Some nation in Eastern Europe, like Germany or Russia, launches a rebellion.
Belarus is apparently part of Russia now. I mean, effectively it is. But the rest of Russia is not covered in here. This is...
Hey, that's Crimea. Ukrainian.
Yeah, he left Crimea gray. I guess that means it's hunter-gatherer territory.
No, it's corn farmers, bro.
Yeah, it's corn farmers. It's banned to migration zones.
Against NATO in the next few decades. This is a proxy for the North Anatolian Mithridates from Pontus, who launched a rebellion that briefly drove the Romans out of the Greek world.
Pontus is Russia.
I wonder why I haven't heard many people use these points. Does he make this all like himself?
There is no way that people help him with this, and if they do, they probably wouldn't admit it.
Okay, well, we're almost done. We're almost on the long haul.
Of the Balkans and Turkey before being defeated. This seems pretty plausible to me. The Romans kept conquering for the next century and more, taking North Africa, Gaul or modern France, and the eastern Mediterranean, and finally taking Egypt. This is a place where it's again difficult to compare, since all of Rome's conquests made geographic sense, since they were clustered around the Mediterranean.
Since they were right next to one another. I'm sorry, I can only take spaces that are directly opposite of me. That's right, I'm a bishop.
But look, Rome has Crimea.
They do, and Russia doesn't. Yeah, so I watched the Simpsons movie on a lark the other day. It actually held up surprisingly well. Better than this will.
There's no similar position for the US, which already controls 75% of the world's economy in its sphere of influence, and thus can either conquer horribly.
Sphere of influence, it's that IR stuff again. The possible extensions of the American sphere is apparently at Moscow.
Yeah, the Middle East part is a little bit messed up because I don't know. America doesn't seem to have as much control as they used to.
No, I don't know.
Especially with Iran. What the fuck is that?
The Shah is long gone.
India, all of the BRICS countries are in here. What does he think is going to happen to Russia?
No one has control over Yemen. Yeah, I don't know what's up with this.
Yes, shit.
They don't.
Hello? Hello? Are we back?
What happened?
Yeah, we're here. Hello?
Okay.
Yeah, the stream off.
The stream is still on, I think. Hang on. My Discord died. WhatifAltHist killed my Discord.
Are we still up on the thing or no?
We're still up. I'm pretty sure we're still live.
Okay. Well, on the Iranian thing, you would be very surprised because I also have Iranian friends. Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure like the majority of the country, I think 53%, they speak English. And funny enough, a lot of them VPN. They VPN like a motherfucker. And I remember I went to Istanbul recently. I stayed there for 2 months, and I met a lot of Iranians.
Awesome. I've always wanted to go.
It's a very nice place. And I'm glad I saw the southeast of Turkey before the earthquake. But Yeah, like I was so surprised when they would say, "Oh, yeah, I remember like playing Skyrim when I was young." I was like, "How the fuck did you play Skyrim?" It's like, "Yeah, we got a VPN and we played it on our computer," and they would know all sorts of things and listen to music, and it's weird.
Thanks,
Yeah, so even
Titan.
American media, like,
Yeah,
it's
too.
global.
There's a black market of like they smuggle in USBs, and there's a
Oh
huge
yeah,
black market of Western films, games, things like that.
it seems to be pretty pervasive. I mean, even drugs are pretty pervasive too. You'd be very surprised. It's harder to get alcohol um, than it is to get like heroin or
In
whatever.
Iran, yeah, I did know
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
it's crazy. I'm so surprised. Like, because you would think like, oh, they're gonna be like when you meet an Iranian from like Iran, they're like from Rosh or from Tehran, they're gonna be like really chaste and like they don't know anything and like they barely speak English. It's like no, they just come in with like a nearly American accent and then just like talk to you all this shit's crazy.
All right,
Um,
we saved the stream. Rudyard
yeah.
hasn't destroyed us yet.
So on the influence thing, yeah, if this is about like economic and military or whatever influence, I mean, this would have to be in some points bigger. Like I think all of the Western Hemisphere is
yeah, of course,
basically
especially all of the Western Hemisphere.
there's only like two holes maybe, which is or maybe three. Like
Even
um,
Nicaragua.
yeah, even Nicaragua, exactly. But Cuba and Venezuela probably. But I think maybe Brazil. I don't really know. It's weird because it's like a question of like how do you measure this? That like is a whole that necessitates a video in itself.
Well, yeah,
Um,
and that gets down to international relations being silly.
yeah. It can't just like all of these countries have influence from different countries.
Yeah, that like it's not you can't firmly put a country into a sphere of influence because
I think anime has a cult following among all these countries, right?
Yeah, we
I
should
hope
just
not.
it should just all be in red. And it's like the anime empire, and then the periphery is
Anime has conquered the world. There's anime
yeah.
conventions in Botswana.
Long live Digimon digital monsters.
Daedalus likes to rag on anime, and I've tried to.
Eventually, I'll watch Cowboy Bebop only because David Hayter is voicing someone. Uh,
I mean, you should do a few of them. There are some that are good.
Full Alchemist Brotherhood.
I don't think he would like Full Metal Alchemist, although I might be absolutely wrong. I'm pretty sure he would like any of the Gundam franchise. Well, not all of it.
Oh yeah,
But yeah, he would like the Gundam franchise.
Legend of the Galactic Heroes, the original one.
I watched 3 seasons
Oh
of
yeah.
Digimon. I feel completely compelled to stop.
Okay, well, yeah. So what else
Sort
do
of
we?
like
Poor
childhood
areas like
nostalgia.
Africa that have no value, or giant overpopulated Asian countries like India or China that are
Holy
difficult to
shit!
manage and also
Africa has no value.
Dude, Africa is just chilling. Just has no one cares about having any influence in Africa ever.
Of course they do. They want the resources.
They want to have the
That,
anime conventions.
that seems to be the only like consistency in throughout modernity. It's always like the question is who's taking from Africa.
I'm gonna go to the Managua anime convention pretty soon.
Dude, that's awesome.
I wish I actually was. I really want to go to. I want to go to
Okay,
Guatemala, El Salvador, and all.
let's try to get through this nightmare.
don't have a lot of value. I guess Central America and Southeast Asia are areas that it would make sort of sense for America to conquer. Also, you have the whole Peter Zeihan argument that I think makes a decent amount of sense that the US could just totally leave its entire world empire and stop being a policeman, and its economy would probably improve. And he thinks this will happen.
Did you read that book?
I have not. I watched a lecture by Peter Zeihan once, and I thought,
I mean, I haven't either, but I'm wondering if he read it. I
uh,
haven't.
Peter Zeihan
You
doesn't make
know,
the point that America is supposed to stop being a policeman. What he says is that America is going to overcome its economic opponents by inertia alone. That we have a stable economy and that it will remain a stable economy. We have recession proofs. We have recession proof industries and that other countries will be much more vulnerable to market forces than we are, which sounds like bullshit to me. But
Yeah, I was gonna say
Out.
that sounds BS.
uh, economics is not my forte. So maybe I'm completely wrong, but I don't see us living in a society that is not vulnerable to market forces.
Happen, and this is a massive difference between America and Roman's geostrategic position. Another problem we run into is that the Romans went through their crisis much more slowly than we did. The historian Peter Turchin has a really fascinating way to measure political cycles. The Romans took 500 years to build.
Yeah, have you guys seen this before, Turchin?
Yes.
I'm very skeptical. I'm not, you know me, I'm not like historian brain person. I don't have a degree or whatever. But I've heard this not just from WhatifAltHist, but from some other people. This specific work by Turchin, I don't know if he brings up the specific what the name of this is, but it goes into like wages throughout time, which I don't even know how like I'm talking about like wages not from like just 1800 to like now. I'm talking about like in the medieval era. And I don't know how that exactly works. I may be wrong. I may be mixing this up with someone completely different, but I'm pretty sure that's brought up, or at least it's
I think
represented as
Turchin has
such.
been wrongly discredited. I mean, it's been, I can't even speak English today. I was speaking Ukrainian so much. Um, he has, I think he has been discredited long, long ago.
So here's the thing you have about anyone who talks about historical cycles, and we've talked about this on the show before, is my problem with that is that I can take anything, history being is a vast subject, and I can take any interval I want and find something to support that interval. So your ability to make an argument about historical cycles and whether a crisis is coming quicker or slower or all that is entirely arbitrary. So it doesn't tell us anything useful. Um,
I know that I brought this up before, but I generally try to avoid historians who focus on
meta-analysis.
meta analysis because it's just too difficult. There are some, even the most skilled of them have trouble doing it, and generally,
Well,
I
and
try to avoid it.
you get this
Just
problem where
avoid
history, increasingly history education, as you go up through the education, it becomes more and more focused on an individual thing to the point where your PhD is probably going to be in something completely obscure.
Yeah, but that's the problem is like that's just not as sexy to the average viewer, sadly.
Right.
Um, you know, uh, that's really like it's really that kind of stuff is really fascinating, and it honestly sucks that the vast majority of people never get into that because that's what I find interesting. I like books that are very
focus things
specific.
like in depth. You can find there's so many monographs that are
No, I
basically
mean like I was saying like videos, like video content, like mainstream like content.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's hard to
Usually when
do.
you get into something, it's like pretty academic because at the end of the day, they know who's going to read this. It's mostly going to be other people who are on the topic. It's like,
Of course,
um,
yeah.
yeah, but yeah, that's it. Yeah, I've seen this before, and the first thing I heard was like wages and like medieval era. I'm like, well, first of all, like
They're
even
not
the cases where there were, how do you have like documents? Like, how do you have like constant records on that? They didn't have like a, oh, fucking Florence, like what is Florence wages throughout 1580 to like 1670?
well again,
They don't have that information.
it's a question of uh it's a question of you don't have the same conception of these things and they don't universally apply that way. Like you're trans-historicizing our concepts of wage. Again, like even that's a fraught idea. It's like a peasant in a European field isn't making a wage, but they're also not dying because they live in a much more communal society than that.
up to their
Yeah, exactly.
Republican crowd.
I heard
Yes.
that some of the most nutritionally deficient, like bones of adults that they found were actually at the beginning of the industrial era, like 19th, I think, like mid 19th century England.
Where people start losing their guaranteed access to food based on
Yeah,
the fact that they're primarily responsible for growing it themselves. So as people start moving away from farming and you see specialization in food and whatnot, and then you start seeing people actually requiring wages to live and not getting paid those wages and starving.
yeah.
Crisis. America's current cycle only started 80 years ago, and even if you want to include the cycle before that, it was only 200 years ago. This means that America will push through its current cycle between
BS.
You can come. What's the red lines? Why
Let's
are
get through this. I'm
2
getting
to
mad
like
at
8
him.
times as fast as the Romans did, which throws off every single one of these metrics.
That's because you made the metric up.
You can see these kinds of historic patterns are very easy to spot in retrospect and pick out key events that match each other.
That's because the human mind is very good at making connections that aren't there. For example, you made the connection that you're a genius, and that clearly isn't there.
In the past. However, once you try to use it to look into the future, it gets much more difficult since we don't know what's going to happen in the future at all. When we try to project the future from strictly following the historic pattern, it's hard. However, from our past, it seems plausible.
Literally, in the same video that he just President Sunday covered, he said that historians have to use the historical information to project the future. Now, apparently, it's hard.
It's hard, bro.
Flip floppity flippity floppity.
Though that will follow a path pretty similar to the Romans, although its actual practical details will be difficult to predict. But the
Then you haven't predicted the future. You've just vaguely gestured at it. Sorry, I'm okay. I'm cool. I'm starting to turn into Hades from Hercules, I think.
Well, we're almost done. It's only 3 minutes.
Yeah, a lot of head damage could be done in 3 minutes.
general direction would lead to America becoming a military dictatorship, followed by a slew of horrifying tyrants, and then sliding into a socialist authority.
Wesley... James Mattis is a horrifying tyrant?
Yeah, dude. I actually don't know who that is, to be honest with you.
He's a Marine Corps general and the Secretary of Defense under Trump for a while.
Oh. Oh, yeah. I remember
that James Mattis, yes.
Authoritarian nightmare that eventually falls to Mexicans and Arabs around the 26th century. However,
What the fuck?
Yo, the brown people just take over.
Oh, God. In 2 centuries.
Trust me, the brown people are going to take over.
No, I'm sorry, in the 26th century. The current timeline of Star Trek Picard is the 25th century. So,
okay, here's my... Oh, sorry.
So, we're talking... Jesus Christ! I don't think he understands what centuries are.
I think Hispanics are going to take over just like how the Irish took over. Just
Not at all.
No, they'll take over, of course. The Irish have taken over. Like, have you seen the number of presidents that are Irish?
Yeah, and for a long time, like the police forces of many major cities were Irish too. For whatever reason, that was a passion that they
firefighters.
And they got into politics and
yeah, and now specifying that you're Irish is like a joke, unless you're actually from Ireland.
Takeover has already happened in a lot of areas in the Southwest. I mean, like especially like the border regions of Texas, New Mexico, and
perhaps, but calling it a takeover is probably inaccurate.
Actually, I think like probably a vast majority of the border patrol and ICE. A lot of them are Hispanic.
Yeah, white Hispanic especially, because it's not. This is the problem with just generalizing it as
Well, the thing
brown
is a
people.
lot of those people, like there's Mexican Texans that are like generations and generations lived there. So,
Yeah,
you know,
Tex-Mex. Yeah,
even their culture is like a Tex-Mex sort of like identity. We're not talking about like, well, the food is an example of that, but it's yeah. But that happens everywhere.
Yeah, it does. Here in Colorado, we put chilies on everything, which I have to assume has to be something from Mexico.
um,
It's not. I'm being facetious, but still.
no, yeah, you're, okay, continue. I was going to say something.
Greater
God, I'm so
authoritarianism is
hungry right now.
worrying. It's something we can pick up through in our own time as the power of the presidency has grown
Why?
tremendously in the last century. In the 19th century, presidents were largely non-entities while the Congress was the real ruler. Today,
No!
We got to make a montage of these stupid images, like music or something.
This is a montage of stupid images.
Yeah, but with him talking, I want some funny music if I'm gonna watch.
Okay, so there's this very common myth about the United States that the president was designed to be a non-entity, and this is simply not true. The president was a non-entity in the Articles of Confederation. He was just a dude who sat in a chair and presided over a Congress that had no real power, which is why the Articles of Confederation collapsed. The president is in the Constitution is explicitly given a huge amount of power, and it was a position that was tailor-made for George Washington. That's just simply not true. Like, even a cursory reading of the Constitution would go, no, the president has enormous power and is an enormous force in American politics.
people don't really pay attention to local politics and less to the actual Congress. To end, what can we do to prevent this Roman path which involves us losing our freedoms?
I can shut the video off.
Here are a couple of my guesses from the Roman precedent. The first will be to respect the value of labor. The Romans pushing slavery was one of the top things that killed their society. America doesn't practice slavery, but it does
Okay,
many
Ages of
other
Discord.
similar
Oh,
things
Discord.
that crush the value of the American worker, whether AI, automation, offshoring, and the like, which crush American wages in the exact same way Gallic or Syrian slaves used to do so. Secondly, to stick to our traditional American values like freedom, truth, sexual propriety, and all that. The Romans
Where in the Constitution does it say we're supposed to be sexually proprietors?
Dude, freedom, like sexually proprietors, bro.
All I know is that we're supposed to be establishing justice, tranquility, and pursuing the common good and happiness and all that.
were initially a very honorable and moral people, and then as they became wealthy, shoved all their values down the toilet. By the time you get the reigns of tyrants like Caligula or Nero, the Romans really believed in nothing. Values may...
That's not even remotely true.
Yeah, we don't believe in anything anymore, guys.
I hate this guy so much.
feel like they don't exist, but in fact there are barriers against the arbitrary whims of rulers, since you have a shared conception about what your
What you need is a checks and balances system to decide whether you should post a video. Jesus Christ. Fine, let's finish this
society
shit
will stand
off.
for. I find it worrying traditional American values like freedom, the truth, responsibility, and individualism seem to never be discussed anymore in popular culture. When I was a
Those aren't values, those are buzzwords.
child, I heard about freedom and the truth all the time. Now they'll never be
That's probably because you weren't telling it.
mentioned, and instead society focuses on woke stuff. The third thing would be respect for civilian power rather than defaulting upon military dictatorship like the Romans did. The Roman elite and political class became so morally corrupt that the only functioning organization that still existed was the army. Looking at our political parties and the cultural elite, I worry at the same thing for modern America, where a military dictatorship may look like a more and more reasonable option every day. The thing is that there were conservatives at the time of the decline of the Roman Republic who said the exact same things I've said here. Men like Cicero and Cato, who were totally correct and saw the direction things were going, who did not want to see their world fall to slavery and despotism. However, they were screaming into a lost cause. As Samuel Francis said at recent conservatism, beautiful losers. The difference between us and them is that the future still lies ahead of us to create. Let's prove that you can learn something from history.
I want to see if you can learn anything from history. That would be really a miracle.
That hurt. Oh my god, my head.
We're free. We're free.
No, we're not.
With that, gentlemen.
Hang on. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to pull open the thing Bunny 2 sent. Or Tux Grass sent. Addis. Then we're going to look at that real quick, just out of curiosity. No connection to the god Aetius.
Wait, is it on the? Oh, you're showing it on the. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is it. I think you'll see. Yeah, Cybele, was consort of Cybele, in legend at least. But I think there's a part. Yeah, his priests were eunuchs, the Galli, as explained by origin myths pertaining to Attis castrating himself. Attis was also a Phrygian vegetation deity.
1250 BCE would put you well before the founding of Rome.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, this is way before, but I was like, there's a very specific thing that he's referring to.
Artemis, yeah. Attis, according to Ovid's Metamorphosis, Attis transformed himself into a pine tree. Well, that's based. Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Yeah, if you can find anything on the priesthood itself, because I think there was something about the priesthood that maybe look at Cybele's. If you go at the top and just go to, you see it says, was the consort of Cybele. Like the first sentence.
Oh,
added. Yeah. And then I think if you go to, look at priesthoods on the category, like on the side with the contents, priesthoods. I think probably it'll be there. Somewhere. Oh, here we go. A Hellenistic poet refers to Cybele's priest in the feminine Galai. I'm sorry, I can't say that, as Galai. The Roman poet Catullus refers to Attis in the masculine until his emasculation and the feminine thereafter. Various Roman sources refer to Galli as the middle or third gender. The Galli's voluntary emasculation in service of the goddess was thought to give them powers of prophecy. So yeah, the priesthood would do that to themselves, just as Attis did, sort of as like a, ideal.
But they turn into trees.
Yeah. So this is, but what's interesting about this is that obviously, first of all, this was before the Roman Republic, and second of all, let's say even if it was like later on or something, this wasn't like, I guess these weren't like a bunch of like cultural anarchists. Like, this is something that was based within the tradition of their society. That's quite old. So
yes, this is very old. At any rate, I think we're gonna call it here. Hetman is probably gonna blow a gasket anyway. First of all, I want to thank everyone that we have crossed 100 subscriber mark. In celebration,
I want to thank everyone else too. With the
in celebration on Sunday, assuming nothing goes wrong, we will be doing a me versus Hetman in Wargame Red Dragon match, where we will see if my native talent can beat out his tryhardness. With the rest of that, I want to wish everyone a very good night, and I hope you have a good one.